My name is Haley Morrison. I was 34 years old when my younger brother decided, without warning, that I no longer belonged in his life. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind that feels unremarkable until it splits your world in half. I was standing in my kitchen in Charlotte, folding ivory linen napkins across the granite island, aligning each corner just the way the event coordinator liked. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be tomorrow night. I'd been planning it for weeks. Menus, seating charts, wine pairings, every detail mattered. It always had. That was when my phone buzzed. No call, just a text. "You're not coming to the wedding." 6 words. No explanation, no hesitation, no apology. I stared at the screen, waiting for something else to follow. A correction, a joke, anything. Nothing came. For a moment, I actually laughed under my breath, a soft, confused sound that didn't belong to me. My first thought wasn't anger, it was logistics. Maybe Matthew's phone had auto-corrected something insane. Maybe Brittany had his phone and thought she was being funny. I called him, straight to voicemail. I tried again, then again. Finally, another message appeared. "It's Brittany's decision. We've decided. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We've decided." I placed my phone face down on the counter and just stood there. The house felt wrong, too quiet. No dishwasher humming, no TV murmuring in the background. Just the slow ticking of the antique clock my mother left me, the one thing I'd taken from her house after she died. Each second sounded heavier than the last. I typed, "Why?" Deleted it. Typed, "Did I do something wrong?" Deleted that too. Instead, I sent, "I thought I was helping." No response. I walked into the dining room and looked at the table covered in binders. 3 of them, color-coded, labeled, perfect. Venue contracts, catering invoices, floral arrangements. Everything already signed, approved, negotiated. By me. Matthew and Brittany both worked insane hours. He was climbing the ladder at a regional bank. She was finishing her nursing residency at Carolina's Medical Center. I'd offered to help because I knew how overwhelming weddings could be. Because I loved my brother. Because I always had. As I lowered myself into the chair, memories came uninvited. The promotion I turned down at 26 because Matthew needed help with college tuition. The weekends I spent driving him to baseball tournaments while my friends dated and moved on. The double shifts I worked at the restaurant so he wouldn't have to juggle classes and a job. When Matthew graduated from UNC, I stood in the very back of Kenan Stadium. No one saved me a seat. I watched Dad hug him while our stepmother Linda snapped photos like she'd earned every achievement herself. Matthew never knew I'd emptied my 401k so he could afford the down payment on his townhouse in South End. He'd bragged about being a homeowner at 25. I let him. When he first told me about Brittany, I'd been genuinely happy. "You're going to love her," he said over dinner at the Capitol Grill. "She's driven, like you." I tried. I really did. I brought flowers the first time they came over, fresh lilies from Harris Teeter. I offered guidance, not control. When vendor costs became an issue, I co-signed contracts to secure better rates. The Mint Museum coordinator knew me from my college event planning days. 1 signature, 1 handshake. Dream wedding, half price. Brittany hugged me afterward and called me her wedding fairy godmother. She posted about me on Instagram. So lucky to have the best future sister-in-law. That was 4 months ago. Now my presence would create tension. I opened the binder drawer and ran my fingers along the labeled tabs. They had no idea whose name was actually printed on every page. The next morning, I called my best friend Carmen. "I already know why you're calling," she said. "Matthew told everyone not to mention the wedding around you. Said you were struggling with boundaries." Boundaries. I laughed. Once. Sharp. Bitter. "Haley," Carmen said gently, "you've been holding that family together for years. Maybe it's time you stop." That afternoon, my phone rang again. Kelvin. My ex-husband, Matthew's father. "Hey, Haley," he said casually. "We're pooling money for the honeymoon fund. $1,200 per person. Venmo works. I'm not invited to the wedding, I said. He scoffed. Don't be petty. It's family. That word again. I won't be contributing. Silence. Are you sure you want to be that person? I hung up. That night, I stared at the binders again. No one had asked if I was okay. They only wanted to know what I'd give next. What they didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that I had already given everything, and the paperwork proved it. By the next morning, the shock had settled into something heavier, denser. Not anger, not grief. A kind of clarity that makes your chest feel hollow, like a room after furniture's been dragged out without warning. I woke up early, before the sun, and sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee I didn't finish. The binders were still there, stacked neatly, obedient. I hadn't touched them since the night before. I didn't need to. Their presence alone was enough to remind me of how much of myself I'd folded into other people's lives until I'd lost track of where I ended. My phone buzzed with a text from Linda, my stepmother. Let's not make this bigger than it is. Weddings are stressful. Try to be understanding. Understanding. That word again. Always reserved for me. Never expected from anyone else. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and began pulling up old bank statements. Not because I planned to confront anyone, because I needed to remind myself that none of this was imagined, that I hadn't exaggerated my role out of hurt. The numbers told the truth. Tuition transfers, emergency rent payments, down payment assistance, vendor deposits, thousands of dollars spread across years, always justified, always temporary, always for family. I'd never kept a ledger before. Love wasn't transactional, I'd told myself. But now, staring at the totals, I understood something painfully simple. I hadn't been generous. I'd been convenient. Mid-morning, Carmen called again. You should know, she said carefully, Brittany's been telling people you're controlling, that you made everything about yourself, that she had to set boundaries for her mental health. I closed my eyes. Of course that was the narrative. It always is when a woman stops making herself smaller. Did anyone ask what I paid for? I asked. No, Carmen said softly. They assumed Matthew did. I let that sink in. Assumed. By noon, my ex-husband called again. I let it ring this time. So did my aunt. Then a cousin I barely spoke to. Each call felt less like concern and more like pressure, an invisible hand pushing me back into line. I turned my phone face down and walked into the dining room. I pulled out the first binder. Venue. Mint Museum. Event date. September 15th. I flipped through the pages slowly, deliberately. The language was clean, professional. Payment schedules, cancellation clauses, refund policies. My name sat alone at the bottom of the final page, clear and undeniable. Haley Morrison. Not Matthew. Not Brittany. Me. I opened the catering agreement next. Same thing. Florist, DJ Rentals. Every single contract told the same story. A strange, quiet laugh escaped me. Not humor. Recognition. They hadn't just uninvited me from the wedding. They'd uninvited the person holding it together. The doorbell rang around 4. I didn't expect anyone, which is why I froze. When I opened the door, it was Sophia. She held up a bottle of wine. I had a feeling, she said. You sounded done. We spread the contracts across the table like evidence. Sophia adjusted her glasses, scanning quickly. Her expression shifted from curiosity to concern to something sharper. This is all in your name, she said finally. I know. Haley, she continued, tapping a clause with her manicured nail. Final payment due 7 days before the event. No payment, contract void. Deposits refunded to the original account holder. My stomach tightened. Meaning? Meaning you don't just have leverage, she said calmly. You have control. The word landed heavier than I expected. Control. I'd spent my life avoiding it, afraid of being labeled difficult, demanding, selfish. Yet here it was, something I'd earned quietly, unintentionally, simply by being responsible. "This isn't revenge," I said quickly. Sophia met my gaze. "No, it's boundaries, the real kind." She poured us both a glass of wine. "You didn't ask to be erased, but you're not obligated to bankroll your own exclusion." That night, I sat alone at my laptop. No music, no TV, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my own breathing. I drafted the first email to the venue. Professional, polite, final. I attached the relevant clauses, highlighted payment deadlines. Then I did the same for the caterer, the florist, the DJ. Each email felt strangely weightless, as if I were finally setting down something I'd been carrying for years. I scheduled them all to send at exactly 9 a.m., 7 days before the wedding. Not as a warning, not as a threat, just an exit. Upstairs, the dress still hung in the back of my closet. Soft blue, elegant, chosen carefully so I wouldn't outshine anyone. I didn't touch it. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and typed one word: Myrtle Beach. I booked a flight for Friday morning, the same morning as Brittany's final venue walkthrough. As I closed my laptop, something inside me steadied. Not triumph, not bitterness, relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't anticipating someone else's needs. I wasn't waiting to be summoned, to be useful, to be forgiven for existing. I went to bed early and slept deeply, dreamlessly. At exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, my emails sent. By noon, my phone began to buzz. I didn't answer. The first voicemail came at 12:07 p.m. It was the venue coordinator from the Mint Museum. Her tone professional but tight, like someone carefully stepping around broken glass. She confirmed receipt of my cancellation notice and expressed regret that the event would not be moving forward. She hoped we might consider hosting future events with them. We. The word almost made me smile. The florist called next, then the caterer, then the rental company. Each message followed the same confused rhythm: polite concern, a hint of panic, then a request to clarify. I didn't respond. I wasn't being cruel. I was being finished. I turned my phone face down and began packing. Slowly, deliberately. A sundress, sandals, 2 novels I'd been meaning to read for months. I rolled my clothes instead of folding them, something Matthew had taught me when he was 12 and I was the adult responsible for making sure he didn't lose his boarding pass at Disney World. The memory softened me for a moment, then it passed. As I zipped my suitcase closed, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Brittany. "Haley, what is going on? Please call me. This is a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. I deleted it. Another message arrived seconds later. "You're really doing this? After everything we've been through?" I didn't respond to that either, because what we'd been through wasn't mutual. It was me giving and them accepting over and over again, until my absence felt like betrayal. By evening, the tone of the messages shifted. Matthew called. I let it ring. He texted, "Please, just talk to me." I watched the screen until it went dark. I didn't hate him. That surprised me. I'd expected rage, maybe satisfaction. Instead, I felt something quieter and sadder, a recognition that this was who he'd always been. Not cruel, just comfortable letting someone else absorb the cost. I left for Myrtle Beach early the next morning. At the airport, no one knew who I was. No one needed anything from me. I moved through security like a ghost, light and unburdened. When I reached the hotel, the ocean was already awake, vast, unapologetic. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and walked straight to the water. I sat in the sand with a cup of coffee, warming my hands, and let the breeze sting my skin just enough to remind me I was alive. My phone buzzed. I didn't check it. I already knew what day it was. Wedding day. When I finally looked, there were 93 missed calls. Voicemails stacked like debris after a storm. Brittany sobbing. Matthew shouting. Kelvin furious. The venue had been released to another event. The caterer never showed. The florist had refunded everything. to my account. Someone tried to piece together replacements, but you can't rebuild something that was never actually yours to begin with. The final voicemail was from Matthew. His voice was hoarse, quieter than the others. "Haley, I don't understand what happened. Brittany's devastated. I don't know how to fix this. Please call me back." I listened once, then I deleted it. I took a slow sip of coffee and watched a family down the beach building a crooked sandcastle. When the toddler knocked it over, no one scolded him. They just laughed and started again. That used to be me, always rebuilding what someone else destroyed, but not today. I tucked my phone into my bag and leaned back, letting the sun warm my face. The ocean didn't ask anything of me. It didn't expect gratitude or sacrifice. It simply existed, vast and indifferent, and somehow that was comforting. By the time the breeze turned cool, I stood, shook the sand from my towel, and walked back to the hotel without checking my phone again. I stayed at the beach until the sun dipped low enough to blur the horizon into shades of copper and gray. The family with the toddler packed up first, folding towels, shaking sand from plastic toys, moving on without ceremony. I watched them go, feeling no envy, just recognition. Life continued, even when you stopped holding it together for everyone else. Back in my hotel room, I showered the salt from my skin and put on a loose cotton dress. I ordered room service, ate half of it, then pushed the tray aside and opened one of the novels I'd brought. For the first time in years, my evening wasn't scheduled around someone else's needs. My phone buzzed again. I didn't answer. The next morning, the air felt different, lighter somehow. I walked the boardwalk, bought a souvenir mug I didn't need, and sat with another cup of coffee, watching pelicans skim the water like they had nowhere urgent to be. I checked my phone once. No missed calls now, just silence. That was when I knew it was over. Not the wedding, but the version of me that waited to be acknowledged. I flew back to Charlotte that afternoon. The plane landed just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the terminal floor. Everything felt familiar and new at the same time, like returning to a house after finally opening all the windows. At home, I unpacked slowly, folded each item with care. Then I walked to the back of my closet and pulled out the blue dress. It was still pristine, tags intact. I held it up, remembering how carefully I'd chosen it. Something elegant but unobtrusive. Something that said, "I belong here," without demanding attention. I placed it gently into a donation box. The shoes followed. The clutch. Someone else could wear them to a place where they were wanted. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table with a single sheet of stationery and a pen. Not an email, not a text. Something that required intention. I wrote, "You uninvited me from the wedding. I wasn't trying to be a guest. I was the one who built it. You tore it down yourself." I signed only my initial, H, no return address. I walked the note to the mailbox at the end of the street and let it fall through the slot without ceremony. I didn't expect a response. That wasn't the point. There would be no long conversations to clear the air. No careful family dinners where everyone pretended nothing had happened. Whatever role they'd cast me in, quiet, convenient, endlessly accommodating, I was finished playing it. Back inside, I brewed a cup of chamomile tea and opened the windows. The evening air drifted through the house, warm and clean. The same table where I'd once planned someone else's perfect day now held nothing but a mug and my folded hands. And it felt wonderful. Later, I walked through my Myers Park neighborhood, past brick houses with trimmed hedges and softly lit windows. No one noticed me. No one asked anything of me. I liked that. I thought about Matthew, not with anger, but with clarity. About Brittany. About how easily love becomes expectation when boundaries are blurred. I didn't wish them harm. I simply wished myself freedom. Some stories end with reconciliation, with forgiveness, with families stitched back together. This one didn't. This story ended with something rarer. A woman who finally understood that love without respect is just performance, and who chose, at last, to step off the stage.